So, for people who don't know, Something in the Park with George is I would say it's the magnum opus of Stephen Sondheim, but then you bring up Sweeney Todd or Into the Woods or any of the other ones that we all know and love.
Well, and that's the challenge with Sondheim is, he has a large canon, but there's almost no clunkers in there. There's a few that are lesser known, that if you mention them, people would be like, what? But among theater folk, I mean, it's a repertory that I'd be hard pressed to name one that's not considered to be, that's considered lesser than the others. The man knew how to write a tune and a lyric. And that's the thing. He always wanted to do music and lyrics, and many of his early stuff, people forget that West Side Story, he is the lyricist. Everybody thinks of it as primarily a Bernstein musical, and it's like there's a lot of Sondheim in there.
Yes. And Gypsy is him as well, which I think people forget. So here's the thing. I don't find Sondheim scary.
Okay.
I acknowledge that it's tricky, but he gives you the roadmap.
Sure.
It's right there. And he writes his musical rhythms in the rhythm of speech.
Human speech, yeah.
And where if you were saying the sentence, you would inflect up, his notes go up, and where you would inflect down, his notes go down.
Yeah.
Which is why I think actors love his stuff so much, is because once you crack that, you're just acting and there's music behind you.
Right. It does all the work.
Recording. Yeah. Yes, you have to learn, okay, there's an eighth rest here. This is the pickup. How are you feeling going into learning a score that he wrote for Bernadette Peters?
Well, at this point, we're still in October, and I have just started getting into it and kind of getting into the granular bits of it, because for those who don't work in theater or haven't had the chance to learn a score of this level of intricacy, the recordings aren't always exactly what's on the page. So you have to go back to the page and really start from scratch and say, okay, where do I start? And for me, I always start with rhythms, because that's the foundation on which everything is built. And my drummer boyfriend would love to hear that. So I sit down with the score and I get out a pencil and a metronome, and I make sure that I'm able to stay on time with everything. Because in Sondheim, if you miss it, I've said this before, the train has left the station and you are not going to catch up. So it's building that solid foundation from the rhythms, and then going into the melodies, and then from there going to my a voice teacher or something like that to be able to work the technical aspect of Sondheim's music, which isn't necessarily as acrobatic as a lot of contemporary musical theater, but it's like watching a really beautiful ballerina do ballet. You have to have a strong foundation and good technique to make it look easy. And to be able to sustain it for however long you have to perform that work. So from there, then you get into the rehearsal room and everything else, the house is built. Then you're just decorating it and making your choices and picking out the colors for the walls. So that's how I'm approaching learning it. So that when I get into that rehearsal room, we're not worried about what the foundation's made of. We're picking out kitsch for the dining room.
Do you find Sondheim intimidating as a composer?
Yes and no. I don't have to sing it.
Good theater, and Sondheim certainly is great theater. I think has a way of codifying your life experience in such a way that like you didn't know what to call that feeling or that desire or that moment in your life until you saw it in that play.
I think it's so fascinating when he passed away last year that when we were all searching for meaning or how we express what we were feeling, we went to his words.
With literally my entire Twitter feed was nothing but his own words. And that's all, you knew exactly what they meant by it. No explanation.
I mean, it is sort of the theater kid cliche to be like, oh, I'm a Sondheim kid. But all of his pieces contain that some piece of knowledge that that helps you understand something. And that's why I love all of Sondheim's works. But as you said earlier, Sunday in the Park is such a perfect piece that
it's really, I don't like using the word perfect when we're talking about the craft and what we do. Are we ever really done? Is anything ever really perfect? But it's as close as anything I can fathom as being perfect, you know?
The company revival that just happened in New York, I was so excited that he was willing, and as a composer, he was willing and open to revisit the piece and went, oh, I think this works. He was never shy from exploration or experimentation, which I think is it's interesting to be so precise, but still okay. We can still explore. We can still have fun.
Yeah.
I think there's still room in the show to find moments of I don't want to say original thought, but find moments of truth that rise out of our telling and our production. So we're not just it's not just mimicking another performance. It's not just mimicking the DVD. It's legitimately telling the story that's on the page.
Did I tell you I was at that performance of Company that he saw?
No.
The first preview back. I sat like 4 or 5 rows behind him.
Wow.
I'm so happy that I went, because I had already seen the production and it felt kind of superfluous. I was like in rehearsals for the tour out in New Hampshire, and I drove into the city like for the day to see that performance, and it felt a little superfluous, but just getting to hear him experience the ovation that he got.
Yeah.
For him to hear that one more time, I will never ever forget that night.
Jeez. So jealous.
Yeah. And then by the time that we had finished the rehearsal process on that, it was gone. Insane.
So we originally planned to do Sunday in the Park with George in January of 2021. Mm-hmm. We will be doing it in January of 2023. Our reasoning behind doing it has not changed, but the world in which we're doing it is very different. Including the fact that, Stephen Sondheim has passed away since we chose to do the show. So why this particular Sondheim at this point, and not say, hey, let's do Forum instead, or Merrily?
I'm a huge Sondheim fan, and I think Forum and Merrily and the rest of his body of work all have wonderful aspects to them. But like what we've talked about before, and the idea that what does it mean to leave something behind, especially given that Sondheim has passed away. What does it mean for us to keep his legacy alive? And certainly, in the Broadway community, that's happening. They're reviving Sweeney Todd. There's, they're going to be doing Merrily again pretty soon. But what does it mean to celebrate someone's entire body of work? And I think particularly this show talks about George's devotion to his work. And I have no doubt that Sondheim saw a lot of himself in George. So I think it's a really beautiful way to honor what a lasting legacy he's had on the theater community.